So what had happened was I rolled into the resort and they're like, "Hey, there's some um I got some work done that I had to get done and there are some kids missing." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. Kids missing." Anyway, so I did my work, punched out, talking with the ranger, and that's when they said, "Hey, there's two kids missing." I'm like, "Well, what happened?" And they're like, "Well, there was a situation where they put into the river. We have river frontage. They put into the river, and then they went and they were going down the river. Their mom or grandma or aunt or something put them in. Are those elk? Those can't be elk. Those look way too small. Anyway, and what are those? That's odd. Anyway, they put in, and then they were out of sight. And then 10 minutes passed, and 20 minutes passed, 30 minutes passed, 40 minutes passed. And at this point, then they started to worry. And they're like, all right, so where are these kids? And they couldn't find the kids. So eventually, they let the ranger know. And then they decided, well, I guess we're going to call the sheriff's office. So they called the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office actually involved um, the city police, Sun River City Police, and then also Oregon State Police. Two girls missing. So at the time, they were believed to be 14 and 8. I think they were 13 and I think they were 13 and 6. And so what you're seeing here is I'm flying down the river. I called the sheriff's office as soon as I realized what was happening, because I found out from the rangers, drove my golf cart down to the river, and I'm like, wait a minute, I could use my drone. And I'm like, wait a minute, no, I really could. Like, this is actually a thing I could do. So I flew down, I called the sheriff's office. So that right there, that's the inlet, that little tiny river way up top of the screen. That's flowing north. That is the little Deschutes. And then this right here, the bigger one, that's going to be the Deschutes River. And as you can see, the little Deschutes goes round and round and round and round and round and round and we go. So I called the sheriff's office and I'm like, hey, listen, I got a drone. If you guys can use that, it is at your disposal. And so about 4 minutes later, I got a call from a deputy, and the deputy's like, hey, can you meet us at Harper Bridge? I'm like, sure, rock on. And I'm like, crap, I don't know if I've charged my batteries. I don't know the status of anything. I have no idea. So I'm like, whatever, we got to roll. There's no options here. Well, I keep a bank of 3 batteries, 2 of which were charged, praise the Lord. And then the remote was fully charged. And then, of course, my cell phone is my viewing device. Now, mind you, you can see this on a computer screen right now. But what I was dealing with was I'm watching this whole thing on the screen of my cell phone, and I'm standing in direct sunlight. So the visibility we have here is excellent, but the visibility we had back there was not. And so my previous drone was a Phantom 4, and it had a unidirectional antenna. Well, that was really great. You had to know where your drone was and aim towards it. And technically, you're not supposed to fly out of line of sight. It's a Q-tip rule. Like no one actually follows that rule. And you couldn't fly effectively in a situation like this without doing that. So what you're seeing here is I'm sort of at the max of my range because I've switched to a Mavic Mini, and the Mini has a tiny range, like maybe a mile and a half. I think that's on a good day. Straight ahead of you right there, you can see the bridge. That's where I am. And then I'm rotating around, but I'm not really getting a good feed of what's happening here. So this islet here, the whole river flows like that. In a 2-mile stretch, the river might flow 4 miles or 6 because it goes so far around. So I'm seeing this bridge. I'm talking to the deputy, and he's like, what I need you to do is go down to that bridge. Because by my math, the river flows 3 miles an hour. By my math, we haven't seen them yet, so they should be further north. And so I'm like, all right. So he radios down to the state trooper that's at this. There's an HOA that owns this golf course. And I wouldn't even begin to fathom the cost of real estate there. But anyway, so I go down to the HOA. The state trooper lets me in. The HOA president is there. And then 2, as I understand it, just residents of the community are there. And so now the reason I'm glitchy, the reason I'm just sort of left, right, is because I don't have a good connection. So I know if I go further, it's going to fail and then it's going to return to home, which is not dangerous, but it's a waste of time and battery. But for the most part, when you launch a drone, that battery's spent. You just budget on it being spent because it's a 30-minute battery, which gives you 15 minutes of distance on a perfect day. So 10 minutes if you're being cautious. So that bridge, I'm talking to the deputy about that bridge that's straight ahead of us. And he's saying, hey, you need to go to a bridge up there. And I go, I see it. And he goes, no, no, no. And he shows me a map. He goes, that you're looking at that bridge. You need to go to the next further north one. Both of which are in this HOA. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. So he's like, so you need to go down there. I'm like, all right, perfect. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fly back. I'm going to load in my second battery. I tell Elise to load up directions to that bridge. Now, mind you, I know how to get to the HOA. I've been there 100 times. I drive by there on the way to and from the resort every time I go. But what I don't have is any idea of what the roads look like inside that HOA. No idea. So I have her load that up, and we head back this direction. And then at this point, I mean, we have no idea what to think. We're like, hey, okay, so are the kids that are involved here, I mean, are they in a situation where they're scared? I mean, it's only, a point of reference here, it's only 6:30 at night. It's not cold out, but it's definitely not warm out. It's July in Central Oregon, which is typically pretty warm, but we've had a late summer. So it's probably 67 degrees out. I mean, just below 70. And so that's the ant right there. So 67, 70 degrees, whatever. And so we're like, well, shoot, we don't know what we're going to do. And we don't know if the kids are scared. We don't know if they're just, oh, no big deal. Ain't no thing, no big deal. I don't care, blah, 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 blah. But so we're lost, right? We have no idea. So Elise right there is communicating with him, getting his number so that we can head to the next location. So at that point, I mean, I had a lot of adrenaline going. A lot of adrenaline going. So the next clip you'll see will be when we take off from over there. So what you're seeing here, we're now at the southmost bridge, and I think it's called Vandervert Ranch. And so there's two kayakers in the river, and we're like, shoot, that's them, that's them. And this lady over here is like, no, 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 that's our own guys. We, folks from the neighborhood, they're trying to find the kids as well. And they're like, this is cool. Don't get me wrong, it's really cool that I did it with my drone, but I think the important thing here is that we recognize, so it was Deschutes County that was really heading up this whole charge, and the deputy, he was amazing. He's like, hey, here's how I figure it. That river, Little Deschutes, flows at 3 miles an hour. I'm guesstimating this is the length it goes over the course of blah, 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 blah. This is where I estimate them to be. And this is probably why I'm not a firefighter or a sheriff deputy, because I'm like, oh my gosh, where are they? I'm panicking. I'm like, they're probably in the Atlantic by now. Anyway, so I'm here, and he had suggested they should be about here, between here and the mouth, which is sort of a short stretch. So there's our rescuers. I had seen them driving in. I'm like, oh my gosh, blah, blah. I thought that was them. It's not. So at this point, I'm flying. What you're seeing here is I'm going due south, which you'll see a little more of this river. There's no such thing as south or north with this river. And this river, it'll go in a loop, or like a, what you would call a J shape or whatever. Sometimes to the point it almost touches itself. And you see this on the left here as an oxbow. What has happened is that is what happened. It went in such a loop it touched itself, and then once it touches itself, it abandons that old loop, right? So that's what that is. That's an oxbow. And the Little Deschutes does this like crazy, because every time water goes around a corner, it erodes the outside of the corner. So these corners become further and further out until they eventually touch. And this river, like I said, it's like someone, shot string out of something that could launch, string of sorts. But the point here is, so we're headed north now. Now, again, I'm on my cell phone, so I see these little dots that are rocks or stumps or whatever they are, and I go, oh my gosh, is that them? Okay, no, that's not them. Oh, is the next one them? No, it's not them. And remember how I said there's no such thing as north or south with this river? Like, we're heading basically south at this point. Um, but if you look, the river then turns and heads the opposite direction because uh, this is very flat land. It's a very slow moving river. I mean, look at that. In the course of 80 feet, the river goes 400 feet because it goes left, right, left, right, left, right. Now, this footage is tremendously degraded. That's why this footage is so low quality. And what it is somehow the file that was on the drone itself is corrupt, and um, I couldn't restore that file or download it. So I think it's really important. Use proper procedures when you're taking out your SD card, but also back up again. See that is all one length of river, and right there's that's 80, 120 feet apart, and that right there it goes over, left, up, right, down, over. Anyway, okay, so this is footage directly off of my phone. So my phone records to the phone and to the drone. And so this footage is directly off the phone. So I say, okay, I don't think they're south of us, which is upstream of us. I don't think they're upstream of us because by this point there's no way they could be that short of a distance. The deputy said they're going to be between the bridge I'm standing at and the mouth, likely. So I had given it a quick shot this way, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go north, which is downstream. So at this point, I'm just flying back, doing one last scan, probably looking at the same stumps again, because I'm, looking at a 3-inch screen here, basically. So as I fly north, I'm looking for two little tiny dots. So that's you can actually see at the top of the screen there. There's the deputy that came to help us. This is a completely different deputy. Our car is parked over on the left there, and that white SUV by me is just a good Sam. I don't think that's anyone official. I think that's the HOA president is what it is. And so at this point I'm like, all right, so we're gonna go south. But you see these kayaks, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's them. No, those are the same two guys trying to rescue. So keep going north. This is Little Deschutes feeds into the Deschutes itself. And as you follow it, it's going to become the Deschutes. And the Deschutes, that's a sizable river, but this is just a little bit larger than a creek, I would say. Find them. I don't know how long it takes me to realize that's not them. Or that's not my two girls. So at this point, I'm asking for any details I can. I'm like, what color is their kayak? And everyone I'm asking doesn't know. My wife had the phone, and I think she asked the deputy that was near us now if he could radio the other deputy, and I think we decided it's orange. But you have a couple disabilities at play here. You have a 4-inch cell phone screen, but then you have me. I'm not entirely acute to colors, as I'm partially colorblind. So I'm trying to find them. Again, with the adrenaline, I don't know. Am I looking for them? At this point, I assume that they're going to be off in the woods trying to walk back, and I'm going to completely fly over them and miss them. Your logic patterns go out the window when you're looking for this. I didn't even think, okay, if they're out of the water, the kayak would be with them or what. I don't know. But to give you a clue of how hard it is to find them, you've already seen them, right? You've seen them and you don't know it yet. And right about now, you're like, okay, I think I see them. So I fly down, and I'm like, wait a minute, is that them? Is that them? I'm looking for you know, a 13-year-old girl, so 5 foot to 6 foot tall, 5 foot to 5'5", whatever, and I'm looking for an 8-year-old. I have no idea what that looks like, right? But then I think I see them. I'm like, they're out of their kayak and they're walking back. So that tells me it's them. And then when I see the arm wave, which is, comprised of 3 pixels on my cell phone screen, it's at that point that I realize, okay, I found them. So what I do, you can't see it because the drone has a really good gimbal, is I fly down to where I get way closer than when they originally saw me. And at this point, I'm realizing a couple things. I'm realizing they know that they're lost to the point that we are looking for them. And then I'm realizing that they are scared. Because if they weren't scared, they just would have got back in the kayak and kept paddling north. And we had a deputy waiting at Harper Bridge, which was, arguably, only 120% of the distance they've gone. So this is where I notify them, like, hey, I see you. You can't tell, but I go up and down and up and down. Those drones have really good gimbals, and a gimbal tells them, like, a gimbal keeps a stable image. So, but anyway, they now know that we see them. So that girl in the back is the 6-year-old. We think she's 8. She's actually, I think, closer to 6. And the girl in the front is the teenager. And again, it's not cold, it's not dark, it's not night, but it's only in the high 60s, and we're at 3,500 feet, and that is a heck of a. That's a heck of a cold river right there. So, at this point, I fly back. What I'm doing right now is I'm hovering, and I'm getting to my map section of my piloting software and getting GPS coordinates to relay to the deputies. And so what we do at that point, we then go over and there's a Sun River police officer, actually was the one that finally made the connection, because he communicated with the deputies and he got the nearest house. Between the HOA president and the GPS coordinates and all this, they're like, all right, Jim Bob's house. So they go to Jim Bob's house and run down through the yard and grab the girls. And then at that point, we're all reunited, right? I don't know the rules on how this is all done, so I obscured the faces of the kids. But my takeaway from this was, I think, the power of technology, the unity of generous humans. The deputy was absolutely wonderful. I never would have found him without that deputy, because I would have been in full-on panic mode. Who cares how fast the river goes? Like I'd be searching, anywhere, absolutely anywhere. I have no idea where they'd be, right? So, all in all, it was a really cool day. And I really wanted a chance to share this. It meant the world to me. It was that evening was full of emotion, for sure.